Okay, so now we've got recording and all the stuff done. So, well, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us today on the May 1st, May Day, which also happens to be the Scorpionic full moon at 11 Scorpio, Master Degree 11, and 11 attendees currently, unless we have some other pop in. We used to get 13s all the time. We hadn't been on 13 in the last 3 or 4 calls. So I don't know how much of the astrology you guys have had a chance to read. I got it out this morning finally. Quite a few people. And they're really writing about this one quite a bit because it's taking us into the deep dive as we're trying to, bring in whatever it is, that our new beginnings are individually and collectively. And it's always this long pattern. It's never a straight line to get from, easy street to, or from, not so great to easy street. Not that I don't think there's an easy street ever. But there certainly are times when life is much more flowing. And I think, it's just not a constant battle, as it seems to be sometimes. But, we had the moons in Aries, the Aries Libra axis before, and now we're in, this Scorpionic set that's coming up. And, Scorpio really takes us all the way into the deep dive. Again, individually, we're each going to be working with it. 8 billion people on the planet. It's going to look like something different. And for each, everybody, it's going to depend on where it falls in your chart. The moon moves fast, but it also, as it goes in and pierces us really deep, it does initiate journeys to go through and do major levels of clearing. And, of course, depending on what's happening in different people's charts or collective groups' charts, nations, cities, organizations, corporations, what have you. Everything's got a chart depending on when it initiated and the energy with the initiation. And then, of course, bigger soul groups, those dynamics are also shifting. So even as we're each invited to go in on a deep level to deal with the deep, dark, dank stuff that's been hidden away and repressed and everything else, that's the individual journey, and that's what most astrologers articulate when they are discussing these things and writing for, the collective or their own little groups of whoever's reading them regularly. But we're also doing this on large collective levels, and also just as a huge humanity group. So, and of course, different people are going to get hit much more specifically. I also think that this is taking us. Let me actually pull up the chart here. Well, all of my charts. These fun. All right, which one was I working with here? Okay, I think that's got the quincunxes too. Let me make sure this is. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. There's we all go through times when we have to go face the shadow, and this is really the individual and collective shadow that we're having to do. And of course, Scorpio full moons are releases. In every ending, there's also a beginning. So, as we deep dive, we can be very deeply immersed in the cells, in the Dantian. The Dantian, of course, is the stomach area. Your belly, deep belly. It's that deep place where all the emotions really are held in their core expression. I mean, the emotional body, of course, it permeates all the cell structure through the whole body, but it really is held, in the belly. That's why, if you're getting a feeling of dis-ease, or if you're scared, or you get butterflies or whatever else, that's why it's all in the belly. And it's that core place where we do have emotional expression. And in the chakra system, of course, you have the base chakra. It's how you're here, at the perineum, the base of your spine, and then going into the second chakra, the sacral, sexual chakra. But that's the creativity chakra, using your I am presence going into that. And when you really are able to blend that in with the emotional expression, which is, the third chakra, then you're able to create through the emotional height of your expression, depending on whatever's coming through. And of course, you want that to be integrated with your heart chakra, which is right above that. And then, of course, when you get all of that integrated really well, and you're embodied deeply in that, then you're able to articulate with the throat chakra. So you're able to speak your creations into reality, hopefully in a much more solid and substantiated way, and in a balanced way. You're not creating through a miscreation thought form. And then, of course, the third eye chakra, which is really, it takes you into the higher mind, so that you're expressing as a higher expression of oneness. So you're not in deep polarity with your expressions and your creations. And then, of course, the crown chakra is just cosmic, light and everything coming in. And then, of course, you've got the toroidal field, which is the energy, going out the feet, and then, making a loop coming back in to the top of your head. And so you're hopefully we're all in that as a higher expression all the time. Not that there's a goal, but that's the highest way to just be. And so I had a couple different charts here. One of them had gotten messed up when I was working on it the other day. So I have redundancy as far as spreadsheets, because you just never know when you might get something messed up. So let me pull. Okay, so the moon being in Scorpio, I'm going to go to the scorpionic trines first. I want to talk about the flowing energies and what's happening. So, this moon at 11 of Scorpio, Jupiter is in Cancer, and Cancer is the other water sign. You have Cancer and Scorpio and Pisces that are all the water signs. So those are flowing energies. Imagine more like oceanic presence altogether. But Jupiter's been traveling through Cancer, and it's gonna finally get through Cancer on the 29th of June. At that time is when we'll also have the next Mercury retrograde. So everything that we're doing now, we are cleaning and preparing for the Mercury retrograde that's going to happen starting in actually June the 29th. Or actually, I guess it's the 29th. I have got it highlighted here. But it just happens to be the same day that Jupiter is on the 29th degree of Cancer before going into Leo, the sign of kings, the sign of all this exaltation type of energy. But when we go on that retrograde journey, it's going to be completely in Cancer. So whatever we're digging up, I think, emotionally with the scorpionic moon, Again, it's anything hidden. It's distorted sexual expression. That's why I really think we're going to, this really, I think, is the catalyst that's going to kind of be the battering ram into everything that's been hidden with regards to Epstein files, Congress and all of their dark sexual expression and how they cut deals. I mean, I won't even get into the specifics on how I think the dynamic works based on things I have read. All I can say, it's really dirty, it's really dark, and I think that this is going to take us into the very core of the rot of the foundation. I feel of government the government operations, everything behind the scenes. I think it all has to come out. And I mentioned before, that the Narcissus Centaur basically just went back into Scorpio, retrograding back on the 17th of April. So just a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks. But so it's at that 29 degrees of Scorpio. And with Narcissus going back there, I mean, just look in the world. Rampant narcissism is just, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So we're really going through an individual and collective review with narcissistic behavior in the human genome, which it's kind of challenging. But and again, it's in the sign of Scorpio. So the fact that that's happening, I think, is very profound. The other thing I think I may have noticed this last time, but I don't remember. My last name, the Bray asteroid in retrograde, literally is sitting in the middle of this moon. Okay. So does that mean that everyone with my last name is going to be having a scorpionic deep dive? Oh, I hope not. I guess, how did I miss that? That's crazy. Yeah, so my last name is actually sitting here going backwards in Scorpio. That's funny. I guess I hadn't paid attention to that. And it's going to go direct on the 17th of June. And then my asteroid will keep going forward. Oh, it'll still be in Scorpio when the eclipses come up. Oh, that should be fun. And there's the Tesla asteroid. The Carl Jung asteroid is also ending Scorpio on the 9th, right before the eclipses. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll see what happens for me in the eclipses. The good thing is that it's trining the Jonathan Murray asteroid, which is also retrograding in the Pamela, which are right next to each other. Who knows? Maybe Pam Gregory and I will talk by then. I keep saying I'll be having conversations with some of these astrological people once I get this thing done and together. And I've been tweaking. I've also been trying to work on video creation because I want to have everything lined out. When I put this out. Okay, that's a sidetrack. Sorry about that. So the thing is, Jupiter though is trining everything in Scorpio. I mean, it's not trining this particular moon, and it's not hugely far from it. The moon is 11 and Jupiter is at 19. But the point is, Jupiter is working with everything in Scorpio. I mean, it does blow things up, but trining energy at least is flowing energy. The other thing that is happening here on the 1st, Jupiter is at 19 degrees, and Pisces is the other sign that is trining. Again, these are flowing energies. But the other asteroid that I've talked about quite a bit with regarding to abuse is Nessus, and that's at 21 Pisces. So Jupiter is within 2 degrees of a trine to Nessus. So that's why I also think Jupiter is going to blow up themes. It doesn't have to be bad. I mean, nothing's bad or good. It just is. But if there is anything that's there, and of course Pisces. Again, Pisces is also hidden realms, but it's also spiritual. So any spiritual abuses, the fact that Jupiter's approaching Nessus, and it will be exact within this week because Nessus moves slower as a centaur. That's going to create, I think, a very interesting energy with all of this stuff as well. So you've got narcissistic stuff coming backwards into Scorpio and Nessus in Pisces, which is moving forward currently, but with Jupiter. So that's going to be a lot of interesting energy, I think. And you're going to see that play out in, what we see out in the world. What else was I going to hit on that? Hygeia and Psyche. Psyche is like a higher expression of Venus, and Hygeia is more of a healing energy. It's Hygeia really, I think, is like a higher expression even of a healing energy. It really wants to be methodical in how we perceive ourselves in the world, how we work to structure healing in our world, and all of that's trining everything in Scorpio. So I think that's going to be a good thing. And then, of course, the North Node is going backwards in Pisces. And that's exactly trining my last name right now. That's interesting. So I guess I'm working with individual and collective future movement, I guess, of planets. So that's kind of interesting. And my first name, Jonathan's coming up to meet that. Okay. You can't make this stuff up in these charts. So that's what I'll be working with, I guess, in May. But we're all working with it, I think, in some level and layer. Venus also is going to come into Cancer on the 18th of May. So if you have Venus and Psyche in Cancer, Cancer's, the sign of the house and home. So I really think that those are going to work with us and the Scorpionic energies to create a positive, I guess, movement after the deep dive. Because, today, full moon reverberates for a couple weeks. Psyche and Venus will come up and they will meet each other basically on the degree, just right before the 11th, 12th, 13th, they're going to be crossing each other. So you're going to have double Venus energy. Lower, regular Venus and then Psyche higher Venus energy that's going to be trining this moon spot. So, by the last week of May, I think we're going to have a lot of good positive healing potential of energy in how we express ourselves, what we value, how we love, and you're also going to have Hygeia there too. Because, Cancer really it's the heart center energy. And Jupiter is there. Mercury is going to come in there on June 1st and then come right behind it all. So there's a reason this deep dive is happening right now, before all of these other personal planets are going to move through Cancer and then trine this particular location of what we're doing. Now again, when Mercury comes in, June, leading up to the solstice. So we'll have the solstice on the 21st, and the solstice is in Cancer. That's when the sun enters Cancer. So June is going to be all about heart-centered, I think, creation. And on June the 29th, we'll have a full moon in Capricorn at 8 degrees. So it's only 3 degrees away from this one. But when that happens, it's going to be working with, Venus will have already moved on the 13th, but Psyche will still be there, and Hygeia is sitting on top of Psyche. They're traveling together for weeks together as they're approaching a retrograde that will happen, I think, in July. But they're basically sitting on Mercury. So there's going to be all this communication with regards to healing and also the highest expression of love with the sun coming in with Cancer. And Jupiter is going to be right next to all of it, blowing it up until Jupiter leaves on the 29th. So the month of June is really going to be bringing a lot of, sunlight, but also an inward observation in how we communicate in every way, and not just through verbal spoken communication. I think it's going to be an internal knowing because it's in Cancer. I think that has to do with the heart center, and the fact you've got Psyche there, Hygeia there, Jupiter there, blowing it up, and Bienor, the Bienor centaur, so one of the centaurs. I forget what Bienor does, but to have all that energy together with the retrograde, and the sun is going to cross Mercury in the retrograde on the 12th of July. So, we're really going to be into June, July, recalibration, I feel, of the heart center is what's happening. It will go direct on July the 23rd, and it will Mercury leaves Cancer on the 9th of August, which is 3 days before the summer eclipses. So I don't think it's a coincidence that all of those planets are right there in Cancer, house and home. There's also a new moon in Cancer at 22 degrees, another master number, on the 14th of July before the sun leaves. And you're going to have all of these planets leaving out of Cancer, going into Leo, Jupiter on the 29th of June, Hygeia and Psyche around the 13th, 14th, Bienor 15th. That's a lot of energy changing, and it does it when the moon changes over, and then the sun, of course, on the 22nd, moving over. So, by the time we get to the end of July, there's going to be a lot of energy shifting, with Jupiter and the sun going in there in July. But by the time we get to middle of summer, I think we're going to have a big shift in how we express ourselves after this scorpionic deep dive on this moon. And at that time, Narcissus, is coming back to 25, 24 degrees before stationing retrograde. And so we're still going to have this whole journey with regards to narcissism. And actually, that goes for almost the rest of the year, I believe. I don't know if I talked about that before, but Narcissus does not leave Scorpio until November the 12th. So, and this is again in Scorpio, and not to be left out, Mercury retrograde. The next Mercury retrograde will be at the end of October, when Narcissus is getting ready to leave Scorpio. We will also have a new moon there on November the 9th. And we also have the sun is going to be in Scorpio on October the 25th as it creates a full moon in Taurus. And Venus is at that moon. So by the time we get to the fall, in October, a Mercury retrograde's there. Narcissus is going to change signs. The sun is on Mercury again. And then, of course, the Carl Jung asteroids are there. The John asteroid is sitting right on top of them. The Gregory asteroid is sitting there. That's interesting. And Judith enters. You can't make this stuff up. So I've always told y'all, I think Judith, certainly works with us and guides with us, but Judith will be in Scorpio at that point when the John asteroid is. That's why I love following asteroids. It's really wild. So, okay. I don't think any of that's off topic. I really think that we have to look at bigger patterns. There's also going to be a Venus retrograde this year. I forget the frequency of the Venus retrograde. If it does it, I think it does it every year, but there's something about but Mars, I think, does it every year and a half or 2 years, I think. Mars doesn't do it quite as much. But Venus will go retrograde on the 3rd of October. So there's going to be a lot of inner journey switching. Venus goes retrograde first and then Mercury just a couple weeks after. So whatever we're doing now, again, this is in Scorpio. And Venus is going to retrograde at 8 degrees, which is only 3 degrees away from this particular moon spot. And the one thing, astrologers will tell you, we go through cycles and we go through back and forth. There's always this back and forth movement. And, of course, the movements are never the same. The circumstances are never the same because we have to go through and change all the sets of circumstances to be able to go through the soul growth. And of course, depending on where you're at, what you're doing, creates the circumstances in which you're shifting all those things. The one thing that is interesting that I do see is when we get into August with those eclipses, Mars will have gone into Cancer, and Eros will go into Scorpio. And they're almost, during their whole path, they're almost trining the whole time. Eros is like Psyche. Eros is the higher expression of the Mars energy, the male masculine energy, and Mars is just that really just hard warrior stuff. I mean, when he gets in Cancer, and Ceres is in Cancer, Ceres is nurturing. I think there's going to be like this nurturing movement energy that we go through later on with the eclipses. So that's all the flowing energy. So let's make a shift from flowing energy to talk about, well, also flowing energy, but not necessarily just the perfect flow. But sextiles it's workable energy. It's energy that certainly is moving forward. But it's not squares and it's not oppositions or things like that. So we have sextiles is going to be Virgo. Virgo is sextiling Scorpio, and Capricorn is sextiling Scorpio. There's not a lot happening in Capricorn, so that's, I think, a good thing. We've got Varda, Ixion, Quoror, things like that, but those are dwarf planets that they're staying on a certain degree. And I mean, they certainly have their moments, but the thing with the sextiles, really the only big thing I think to mention is the fact that the South Node is in Virgo, and it's in a wide sextile to this moon point. I mean it's all the way off to like 6, so I guess it's not really as active. So it's kind of wide, but I mean the South Node is all of our past, individual and collective past, and what we've been working with. And White Moon Selena is sitting on that South Node. So White Moon Selena, I mean, some people talk about that being like a higher expression of like a Black Moon Lilith kind of energy. And so and actually the Judith asteroid is coming up to meet up with the South Node coming up at the end of May. Like about May the 27th, it'll cross it. So maybe Judith is going to, bring us stuff from the past. Who knows? And the John asteroid's just right in front of Judith. I mean, within, like 10 degrees. I mean, that's like pretty wild. And the Gregory asteroid too. So, yeah. So, I mean, not really a lot in sextile energy that I see there. The squaring energy, you've got Leo and Aquarius squaring Scorpio. So that is really activating this moon from a standpoint of Pluto and Juno. Pluto and Juno and a tropos of fate are sitting together on this moon. Pluto's at 5 degrees, Atropo's at 6, and Juno is at 7. The moon is at 11. So Pluto is really big enough that it's really adjusting us on this moon. I mean, it's transformation, it's death and rebirth, and it's the other reason I think that we're being deeply activated. And again, I mean, we're on this call, and individually we've done a lot of internal work on our own, so we're probably not being dragged through, too much stuff. I mean, depending on what's happening. I mean, with me, I've got, the older people, so that certainly is death and rebirth themes. I mean, no one's currently dying, but I mean, as we age, we certainly are playing with, the death themes, and just as energy, as pure energy. And I've gained so much wisdom in working with aging people in the last few years, because there's something about, as we age, how do we attend our lives, and do we attend our lives to the highest capacity? And at what point do we start just giving up because we either don't feel right, or we don't have the energy, or we don't? And that can happen at any age. It's one reason why you have young people that can die earlier, because they either stop engaging life, or they're not taking their power, or they've created some huge dynamic for some karmic clearing, and then they have to really go meet some very intense energy that comes in physicality. So they take a disease pattern on, and then have to go through all the transmutation work, or you end up going through physical death. And of course, that's not easy. But Pluto really just stays on that degree. It's been on the 5th degree for a long time. And I mean, if you read the astrologers, they've all told you Pluto retrograding is on the 5th degree, and it just stays on that degree. And it retrogrades on the 6th, which is only 5 days from now. And that retrograde, it just sits and sits and sits for weeks at that space. And that really creates, it's kind of it's hard to say. It's like a pulsating, resounding energy that just barrels through the cosmos. It radiates. Let's call it radiation. The fact that Juno is sitting there with it now, it is really transforming marriages, business relationships, the way that countries see each other, how they are in their own dynamics. I mean, we have marriages between nations. We have, whatever kind of relationship you want to call it. All of those things are being hit by this moon. To be that close, it is really transformative energy. Again, anything that's hidden beyond, behind the surface, and that would be every national relationship to each other, the relationships between business leaders, corporations. This can really go very deep. Again, Pluto's not exactly square to it, but it's close enough that it's 5 degrees away. So I do think it is definitely transforming partnership, how we partner, with whom we partner. The fact that Atropos is sitting there. Atropos is the cutter of time. That's one of the 3 fates that when it's there, it usually it's like either an ending or it's a shift of the time period of fate. And the fact it's there with Juno and Pluto, I think, is very telling. And again, it's squaring this area of the moon. So we'll just have to, just observe to see what happens out there. Let me see. What else was there? Eros is coming along in Leo, squaring everything in Scorpio, but I mean that's just quick transits. I mean, I'm not going to sit with that with any time. Yeah, but I mean the main thing with this square ends up being the Pluto Juno journey, and Juno is moving forward, but it's going to go retrograde around the 8th. Pluto will have already gone retrograde a month before, but when Juno retrogrades, it's going to come back toward Pluto. So this is a long-term transformative energy with regards to relationships, but also how we define a relationship. I think how we value relationship, and I bring that in because Venus on the 13th of June, I see coming into Leo. It will be opposing Pluto and Juno in between the 13th and then the 21st. It will aspect both of them in that week time period. That's all coming in around the summer solstice. So the fact that Venus is really going to pretty much be on Juno, it's kind of in between the two, but it's closer to Juno. I think that's really going to, it's an opposition to Juno. So that's going to be a really transformative time with regards to how we value relationships and, again, how we define them. It can also be ending and creation of the relationship and in the whole structure. Atropos also goes retrograde on the 19th, about the same time, a little after the Juno retrograde, and it's going to go back working with all that. And again, this is all in Aquarius, so this is about people. It's about bigger dynamics of the human expression. So I really think it's going to affect big groups of people more so than even individuals. It will affect individuals too, but there's something about all that energy, and again, retrograding at that time, they will all be sitting kind of on top of each other going into the eclipses coming up on August the 12th. And then Juno leaves Aquarius and goes back to Capricorn for a bit. But Atropos is going to come right up on Pluto during the eclipses. So I think that's going to be, again, the cutter of time is going to be sitting on Pluto on the midpoint of the eclipse energy. And that's like, I don't think that's a mistake. So I think the eclipses are going to be, Pluto's transformation, Atropos cutting of time. We may really feel like that time gets cut. I mean, we may feel a whole different sense of how we play with time, how we work with fate. The fact that they're all there together is really pretty amazing. So, just a little bit of energy to talk about toward the future. But Pluto and Juno going back and forth, we're going to be working with that through the rest of the year. And Juno will not pass across until the 8th of December, past this point where it is now. So, and it will meet up with the North Node on the 23rd of December. So it's kind of like if you're in a relationship transformation, you may meet your future partnering by Christmas. If you want to look at it just through strict definition of astrology, because the North Node is always where we're going. But that's collective energy as well, individual and collective. So, okay, so that's pretty much like the squaring energy, the challenging of it. And then, of course, let me check for opposition here. So opposition-wise, the sun is in Taurus, creating this moon. Taurus is relatively pretty busy right now. The asteroid Lilith has just it's coming up. I mean, it's just met the sun. I mean, like yesterday and the day before. So Lilith is right by the sun. And so you've got, and again, the Lilith asteroid, they kind of look at it as it's the same energy as the Lilith path, but it's just the function of the asteroid, not the apogee of the moon path. But it still would represent, the darker forms of Lilith, which is going to feed the scorpionic energy. So if there's any place where individuals have either misused the divine feminine energy, or if they've felt like Lilith, that Adam betrayed her or something like that. I mean, there's all sorts of themes you could come up with, but the sun is lighting up Lilith with the moon. So the fact that Lilith energy is right in the sun, I think, really speaks a lot. I don't remember reading about that too much. And a lot of people they just pay attention to the big stuff. They don't really go into these nuanced things quite as much. But and Mercury enters Taurus tomorrow. So Mercury is going to come across all of this energy that the sun's coming across. And then Ceres, which is, kind of nurturing energy, stuff like that, that is in Taurus. It's already passed this moon, but it's at 18. But what's going to happen? The next new moon, which is going to be May the 16th, Ceres, the sun, Mercury are going to be sitting on top of each other basically in that moon. And they're going to be sitting on Algol. That's the fixed star. That usually means beheadings, all that kind of stuff. In addition to all that energy being in that spot at 26 degrees, the Narcissus retrograding centaur is basically at 27 degrees. So, and it's in opposition to that moon. So, if I were going to be like an astrologer and play an astrologer, I would say if you've got narcissistic personalities in retrograde opposing that moon, that could be a moon where you've got some big shifts with narcissistic people being shifted out. It usually doesn't happen on a new moon. That's usually new creation. But it could also be a narcissistic personality trying to create new energies, like in not such a good way with that moon. But the fact that Ceres is there and Mercury is there, a lot of communication with the sun and nurturing energy that hopefully can work with Algol. I mean, Algol doesn't always have to be bad, but the other thing that's interesting too, Eros, which is the higher male expression, is almost it's in a 3-degree square to that. So I think that's going to be an interesting energy with the next moon. One of the people that I was that I sent you guys, Molly McCord, she talked about this moon set that we're in, and she mentioned that we're really in 3 moons in May. So it's a blue moon month. We've got this moon, and then we'll have the new moon in Taurus on the 16th at 26. She talks about that one, stabilizing recent changes and resetting self-worth, and then Uranus conjuncting Sedna, rapid information, new narratives, shocking revelations that challenge belief systems and awareness. And then we end in May with another full moon, so it's a blue moon, and that's pretty rare. But she's saying that one really offers optimism, clarity, and inspired vision for the future, reinforcing growth and forward momentum with a trine to Saturn and Aries. So, and the different astrologers have all said something else, but that really just made me think that this month really is. It's like the beginning of the month is taking us to the depth of our core with the Scorpio moon, the Taurus moon, which is trying to stabilize the changes, but then the Sagittarius moon really brings in more inspired shifts. So I don't want to stay in just doom and gloom stuff, but and you always have to do, I think, a deep transformation to get to the next, wherever it is you're going. And so the other part to this that I wanted to share, let me see, that was the squares. There's just so much happening right now. It's really pretty wild. Okay, so I talked about, I wanted to go to the squares with Pisces. So when I've talked about these themes of abuse that are playing out, Nessus is, of course, abuse, and it's really only moving very slowly through Pisces. All of these centaurs, and there's about 20, I guess there's 22 maybe named centaurs, maybe up to 24. Most astrologers don't deal with them all. They only deal with just a couple. And you've got Chiron and Cheroklo, and supposedly the wife of Chiron. And Narcissus, people talk about Narcissus a bit just because of narcissistic personalities. But Nessus is one of the bigger ones to talk about because of abuse patterns. And this whole month of April has had the personal planets went across Nessus. If you remember, we talked about this actually back in March. We had the Mercury retrograde going back and forth over Nessus, and then it came back over Nessus. Mars came over Nessus, and we've had Pallas Athena go over, which is justice and all, that kind of energy. Vesta crossed Nessus just this last week. Pallas Athena moved out from Pisces and went into Aries. So, Pallas is going to try to work with the I am presence as far as bringing, I think, a balanced energy to themes of justice and all those types of things. But Vesta is more like house and home energy going across Nessus. So to me, that would be kind of, and in Pisces, I think it's infusing an energy of trying to bring some nurturing energy to any types of abuse, things that have been abused before, and all that. But the other part, to the squares of this, is the oscillating Lilith pattern is in Sagittarius more than not. For any other sign. It does go back into Scorpio some, but and again, I talk about the Black Moon Lilith oscillation as being the highest form of divine feminine expression, and it's squaring Nessus and all these things in Pisces. So it doesn't have to be hard energy, but it certainly means it's something that has to be worked with. And so it's going back and forth across Nessus. The fact that Nessus is at 21 degrees, it's gonna be. Let me see. Yeah, this week coming up, the Black Moon Lilith oscillation goes over Nessus in square. So I do think that that's going to activate a lot of feminine energy. I think we're seeing more women coming forward and saying, they're not fine with this abuse. We're not going to tolerate this abuse. And it doesn't have to be women. It's a higher expression of the male as well. It's all voices of the divine feminine in the collective human expression. People are really tired of the abuse stuff, and the fact that Lilith is going back and forth over it. Lilith isn't going to tolerate stuff. And on the 8th, the oscillation goes retrograde, and it's sitting right on top of Lilith. And you've got the Black Moon Lilith average there. You've got interpolated Lilith, which is another version of the Lilith expression. But you also have the Waldemuth Lilith, which is crossing all of those, all at the same time, right on Nessus. It's the other reason why I think we're going to be working very deeply with the abuse patterns. And when you take that and then you work with the Scorpionic energy as well, I mean, just in a nutshell, I mean, anything that is abuse cannot be hidden anymore. Everything is being pulled forward. And you've got all this energy that's working with it, especially the Divine Feminine. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4 versions of the Lilith path that is squaring Nessus. So the Divine Feminine is really coming up and just saying, that was one of the things I noted when I was just looking through the charts with the sky the way that I've got it here. The other part, Clotho is the spinner of time. I think that's right. Let me see. Atropos is cutter. Clotho, I think, is the spinner of time. And then Lachesis. I forget. There's 3 fates. I forget how which ones the other 2 do. I want to say Clotho is the spinner of time, like a time period. Clotho is retrograde going in Sagittarius, and it just went across the Great Attractor. And the other thing that's interesting is Nessus is right in the middle at 21, directly in between the square to the Great Attractor and the Galactic Center in Sagittarius. So you've got 2 galactic points in Sagittarius, which also falls over the Ophiuchus constellation. So you've got all these Ophiuchus stars there, and the main one is Rasahawa, which is it's the head of the snake. It's the snake charmer at 2248. That's an exact square to Nessus. At the same time that you've got oscillating Lilith going over Rasahawa. This is a very complex energy because oscillating Lilith looks like a snake going through the sky. And the fact that she's going over Ophiuchus, which is the sign of this basically call it the snake bearer. It's a snake energy. It's an undulation. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And when you look at the way that the true Divine Feminine energy expresses itself, I mean, Judith, taught this in all of her retreats and workshops. If you went to any of them, if you were fortunate enough, but she talked about how there was this. It was like this very. It's like a cosmic movement, but it undulates. It goes back and forth and back and forth. It dances. Basically, call it a cosmic dance. I mean, I think that's the easiest way to kind of look at it. But the fact that energy is expressing itself in Sagittarius, squaring the Nessus, it's almost like the Divine Feminine is dancing its way to break apart abuses. And in Pisces is that hidden realm. It's that 12th degree. It also has to do with spirituality. It would not surprise me if we see a lot more of the false New Age break apart. All these teachers that we've seen for years that published all these books. And I'm not saying that they were all bad. That's not the point. But anything that was weak, anything that was false, like all of the Louise Hay House publishing. I mean, everybody jumped on the bandwagon and put out a book. I'm not saying that the books were bad. I am saying that there's a testing ground that's going to come through, and anything that's not written or expressed in the highest potentiality that can stand pressure if there's been any abuse in that type of way, I think that this energy is going to wash it like away. I mean, imagine a tsunami coming in and coming into a library, and any books that are written that are less than substantial as far as divine truth, as eternal truth, all of those things can be lapped at. That water, that oceanic presence can come in and break that apart. So it takes away any of the. It's kind of like taking the wheat from the chaff. It's like you're pulling anything that's extraneous that doesn't sit in its greatest expression. And what's funny, the Linden asteroid is coming up on Nessus. It's almost like Judith is coming up with all the abuses, as the last name expression, and she's saying, nope, we're done with abuse. And she could be very well doing that in the inner planes. I mean, I don't know. I just find it interesting. And the Pamela asteroid is right behind the Linden asteroid. So, I mean, Pam, Gregory really reminds me of someone in her own, way and expression, that's working with the world like, Judith did in Bigger Picture Dynamics. But I mean, they're coming up on that Nessus. And I mean, I do think that, it is kind of like an interesting way to observe the way that, things are working. But the fact that the galactic center and the great attractor, there's that point between 14 and 27 degrees of Sagittarius that's in an exact square to Nessus and abuses. I don't think that's a mistake. And Terran Hiawatha is right next to Nessus. Pam Gregory is always referencing Terran Hiawatha. I'm trying to remember the whole Terran Hiawatha imagery. Let me pull it. I get these books from Benjamin Adama that I've mentioned before that talks about all the trans-Neptunian objects and all the centaurs. And let me just pull a quick little. So Terran Hiawatha, and again, this is right next to Nessus, all these abuses. Profound, intense, light, dark contradictions and dualities, unhappy marriages, reforms, seeing life as a mission, and paradoxes. That's all Terran Hiawatha. So the fact that it's right next to Nessus and it's squaring all this stuff, I mean, and you've got that, and you've got Juno on Pluto. This is a lot of transformative energy that is going to shake the very foundation and core of every type of relationship. I don't care if it's business, personal, marriages, siblings. It doesn't matter what it is. If there's anything in the relationship, nations. I mean, if you look at a macro level, anything that's got abuse in there that needs reforming and needs shifting, all these things are working together. So these are two different dynamics. But you basically have Terran Hiawatha and also Saliskara, which were two that actually are double cubanos is what they're technically called, but just objects in the sky. But I mean, they come from their mythology, like through the Iroquois Confederacy. Significant roles in the well, I'm going to pronounce that. It's creation stories and cultural beliefs. But Terran Hiawatha was known as the sky holder and holder of the heavens, central figure in the, I'm just going to have to, Haudenosaunee creation mythology. So you've got this creation mythology that's working, and they were twin brothers, and the other brother was known as the flint, or the holder of the earth, to bring balance and order to the world. And Terran Hiawatha is associated with the upper world, the celestial realm, and the forces that govern the sky, such as the moon, the stars, and the cycle of nature. Depicted as powerful, benevolent deity, provides guidance and sustenance and harmony to people. So, and I'm not going to read this whole thing, but the long and the short of this, let me get down to this part. The characteristics could include much sorrow, people involved in reforms, an imbalanced mind, people whose entire life is a mission, personally made lonely struggle behind the scenes, occult accidents, blind spots, occult lodges, philosophies, tax problems, investment problems, unhappy marriage, unhappy home situation, gaining respect status, but without personal happiness, sexual scandals, especially in male horoscopes, oh joy, strange, peculiar, violent death, children involved with drugs, paradoxes, black and white dichotomy, split and dual situations. You get the idea. So that's Terran Hiawatha next to Nessus. I don't think that that's a mistake. The fact that those two items are traveling together, that's huge energy right there in Pisces. And interestingly enough, the Gregory asteroid in Virgo is opposing Nessus and Terran Hiawatha. So Pam is always going up against these things. So she's retrograding over it, and she's coming up to go direct on May the 10th. So she's literally opposing Nessus, like exact. I mean, she's always discussing, and of course, I mean, this could be any person with the name of Gregory or first name of Gregory, but I find it so interesting these asteroids, are lining up in this way. And the John asteroid goes direct in Virgo, just right behind the Gregory asteroid. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up. So the other thing that's interesting too is that the nodes, the south nodes in Virgo, the north nodes in Pisces. So we're working with where we're going in the future. We're also working with where we're coming from the past. The Judith asteroid is coming up on the south node, and the John asteroid's right in front of it. So it's almost like our first names are working in tandem at the beginning of Virgo to, work forward with this kind of energy. It's really wild. So, okay, so that was squares with regards to Nessus. Let's see, what other was there? I thought there was something else I was going to hit with regards to that. I guess I already talked about the trining with Nessus and Tarawaco. I mean, there is trining energy kind of between Narcissus and then the Nessus and Tarawaco. So I think we can have flowing energy, to work with pulling these things out. Or maybe those two types of the narcissism with the abuse are being worked with together, with all the other energies that are hitting them, to try to make transformation. But the biggest thing that's going to happen on a positive aspect, though, because I don't want to make it just all about the bad, but coming up in June, we're going to have that Mercury retrograde in Cancer, and that's going to oppose Nessus and Terran Hiawatha. So it will be, oppositions can be difficult. No, I'm sorry, not opposition. Those are trining energies. So that energy will be trining and working with the abuse stuff. A lot of communication about it. The sun's going to go across it and light it up. So that's going to be the June, July with all that retrograde cycle. And the 1st of August is going to go back and forth over the abuses. So you take that, you take the squares. It's very challenging energy is basically what it is. And it's all in an interplay with this particular moon. If you look at it throughout the rest of the year, I could go through and hit certain points, but I'm going to let the astrologers talk about that through the rest of the year. So, okay, I never know where I'm going to go with these calls again. It's like, I just open the chart and start talking about whatever's there. Let me see if there's anything else that I needed to address. Also, with the square to this, the Eros, which is the higher male expression, like Psyche is for Venus, it's exactly squaring the sun, which is creating the moon. So I think, we may have momentary shifts with regards to how the male highest expression is working with itself with this particular moon. Because, again, Lilith asteroid is sitting with the sun, creating the moon in Scorpio. All right, where's my... Okay. Oh, yeah. And not to be left out, it is also squaring, the Juno-Pluto conjunction, which is Aquarius. So, I mean, that's four big energies on the axis. And it really creates a grand cross. So you've got this push and pull. Eros is in opposition to the Pluto-Juno conjunction, and then the sun with Lilith is in opposition to the moon. So I think that's really creating a lot of transformative ways in how we see ourselves, basically in relationship. But it's an inside job because it's a Scorpio moon. So, yeah. So the bigger picture, just for us for this call, whoever's listening to the call, is there any place, within your own life where you see this, coming forth? There may not be anybody on the call that feels like they're hit with any of this personally at all. You may have family or friends. You may have someone that's going through something with the shift. If nothing else, there's always something happening. I mean, it may not be hitting any big things in our charts as far as planets or asteroids or any of the centaurs or any of the points, but on a core level, though, there's still the fundamental internal shift, because we're here, we're in the energy of the collective. We're still going to be a reflection of whatever's out there. Until you're not, but at bare minimum, I think it's always a moment of time to go in and reflect with ourselves. If there's anything that's still being held, if there's any anger, if there's any resentments, if there's any of that kind of stuff, happening, that really does, I think, beg to take us into deeper, I think, observation with everything. Now, Venus just went through Taurus, so that was in April, early in April, which basically I think took us into clarifying what we value as far as our stuff, people, money, how we love, what we love, and all those kinds of things. But the fact that Venus, the fact that Venus is now in Gemini, it's basically taking us into how we communicate. What do we value as far as all sorts of communications, but and again, that can be an internal event. So wherever you are in your own journey with self, I think is really important. And the other part to this is that I don't know if I mentioned that a while ago, Venus is really trining the Pluto-Juno in Aquarius. So the fact that that's happening means that we're working with the transformation energies in how we're going to communicate what we love and what we value. So, I mean, there is workable energy with all of this transformation. So I guess that's the bulk of, what we're dealing with, all this stuff. But long-term picture, whatever we're going to be able to clear with this Scorpio full moon, and again, full moons are always clearing, whatever we can clear is going to just create more space for whatever it is that we want and need in our lives. And, so I hope that is enough, and not too much. I mean, I certainly don't want to overpower anyone with all of this. We had got to the 13 a while ago. I don't remember who it was. I think we're at 12 now. But we did hit the 13. So, I mean, if that gives you anything to reflect on where you're at, again, it does not have to be something that we're dealing with individually on a big level. I mean, sometimes people are just on the planet, and we're just here, and we're observing, and we're not being hit, with whatever is happening on the energetic level, personally anyway, which is good. But even just to be here sometimes and observe everything out there is not the easiest thing to do. So, on that note, I'm going to get myself all moved over here to the couch so I can sit and take us into this deep meditation so we can transmute whatever it is that we came here to transmute today. Because we can always shift something. The good thing is we're shifting it for ourselves. Anything we shift for us, we're shifting for, the collective, which is always really nice. And as always, I'm deeply grateful for everybody that's able to join us on the calls, because, it creates clearing for us, and the fact that we're doing it together. I mean, again, it's not a me doing this, it's all of us. I may be guiding the meditation and the discussion of this stuff, but I mean, it's the collective energy that's doing the work, so I always want to acknowledge that and give credit for it. And deep appreciation for all of you that are choosing to be with us. Because it really does make a big difference, I think. And of course, all the people that, talk about, the meditations, that they do and all that. I think it does. Whoever's meditating, I think that energy affects the field. I've talked about the morphogenetic field so many times. What was it, 9:26? Okay. So I'll try to do, well, I'll just go in until I get activated. So if you're in your beds and your recliners or couches, wherever you're at, just get really still, and then, because this is a deep scorpionic full moon. I mean, just sit with yourself. Anything that comes up, anything you want to release, definitely release it. And I've talked about this the last several times too, but and I'm certainly speaking from experience. We really are being invited to just clear the decks. I mean, on every single level. Everything emotionally you're carrying that you don't need anymore, everything you're carrying mentally, I mean, just let it go. Spiritually, if you're in some stuck place, I mean, let whatever it is that you have a perception of go. And last but not least, in physicality, I mean, we are really being invited to release and skinny down in the material world. I mean, if there's stuff you don't need, release it. I mean, and I'm the poster child for this one. I mean, I've got so much stuff I've got to shift in physicality to open up space for the new life I want. I mean, it's all coming no matter what. I mean, we're definitely going there, but I mean, I still have to make so much space for what's being created. It's just a push pull for me between everybody else and then also me. I think I'm going to have to start making some choices and putting myself first a lot more than I am. Of course, I mean, that's my journey. So, however that looks like for you. So, yeah. So let's just get still. Let's go in and just think about it on a cellular level too. Also, on the atomic and subatomic levels, the molecular level. I mean, imagine shifting all of the dead cells and anything that's being carried within the physicality on a cellular level, on that core cellular level. If there's any way that we can invite spirit and all of the ascended masters, their infinite presence, and the Elohim, the builders of form, and the angelic kingdoms, and all of especially the elemental kingdoms. And the elemental kingdoms are the ones that are working with us on those minuscule levels to create the world of form and physicality. So we definitely want to invite every type of energy to release every micron of anything that doesn't go with us. And most people aren't articulating that. I mean, I assume that's a good thing to articulate because that's what Spirit's leading me to do. So, and you're here to hear it, so I assume it's assisting. But I mean, what does that look like? So let's just really imagine pristine awareness, and we'll go from there. So, just get really still and go deep dive. And let's just imagine ourselves cleared and just going into pure pristine awareness. And here we go. Okay, everybody, I think that took us into a pretty good deep place in our cores. So I'm going to turn off the recording